All right, welcome everyone to the session 4 of the UiPath Summer School of 2022. Thank you all for joining, and you got it. This is the last session, so we're excited to have you here, and happy that you've been with us for all those 4 sessions. And hopefully, we have a really exciting agenda for you today, and you will be able to learn something new, get some inspiration, and maybe get some ideas that you can use on your day-to-day on your automation journey. So agenda of today is really what is email automation. When we refer to email automation, what we mean, which actions can you automate around email, and how we will use StudioX to make this email automation a breeze, easy task. And then we'll have some demos around Outlook automation and Gmail automation. A couple quizzes there just to make sure that you guys are staying with me, and we'll end with a Q&A where we can answer some questions and talk a little bit about what's next. Hopefully, by the end of the day today, you notice that this summer school is really just the start of your journey, and you'll be getting involved, as Diana mentioned, in some of the other events, the other trainings. You get into academy, you can do a lot of the free training that is offered there. You can use the forum to ask questions and collaborate with others, and join this rich community that supports the UiPath environment. And let's dive right in. A couple resources that we'll use. You have access to this presentation and those links, but if you want to follow along, you can download the exercise pack. It just has a couple samples that you can use, and there is a walkthrough of one of the examples that we'll use as well that I've linked on the presentation, and it has a little more detail as well on how to do some of those exercises. So those are the resources we'll be using today. Really, all you need is StudioX, and you'll be all right following along with me with some of the demos that we will be doing. So let's start really with the basic. What is email automation? You hear that quite a while, and I think everyone knows how much we use and we rely on email on the day-to-day basis on any business, right? Or even on a personal life. I think we can relate to how much time we use on our days inside mail program, Outlook, Gmail, whatever you're using. The idea behind email automation is that some of the time we spent with email is around repetitive tasks. And coming on back from session 1, a lot of what we've been discussing is, hey, how can we automate repetitive tasks? So from an email perspective, usually goes around, we receive some emails that we can kind of predict their structure. Maybe I receive invoices, I'm an account payable, and I receive invoices. Maybe I'm on HR and I receive resumes for folks applying to positions. Maybe I'm in IT and I receive tickets of folks asking for help. Maybe I'm in cybersecurity and I receive emails requesting access to things that I need to review and whatnot. So there is a lot that is kind of repetitive, kind of predictable, that assuming you have some sort of structure in those emails, maybe we can automate some of them, if not all. And also, that might be a part of a bigger, more complex automation project. So going a little bit on those examples that I made, let's say your accounts payable and you receive some invoices. So, okay, you know that kind of predictable. You can say the invoice usually is attached, usually is a PDF document, that some partners, that some companies partners that you have might always have a predictable name. So I might say, hey, I want to do something more than just receiving that email. Maybe I'll save those attachments and maybe I'll reply to them with a standard message. Maybe if an email says, hey, there's a late payment, you want to kind of check for that as well and do something a little bit different, but give that standardized customer service to your customers. On the other examples, if you're HR, maybe you want to get that resume, and if the title might have the position that the person is applying, maybe you want to already forward that to the hiring manager so they can review, right? And it saves you a lot of time. If you're in IT and a ticket comes in through an email, maybe you want to just document that on your application, saying, hey, I want to put that on my IT application so that I can start controlling SLA or something like that. If you're on the cybersecurity team, someone say, hey, I need access to this application in a standardized way, maybe you can provision that access, or at least send that for review of an approver or something like that. So email automation is everything that you can kind of predict the structure on an email and do something about it. That we will see what that something is. I mean, maybe it's replying to that email, saving an attachment, forward to someone, and things like that. So usually email automation is also part of a larger project where you might get that invoice into SAP, right? You might need to load for payment or something like that, and you will be also using that email automation. So what is some of the common things that you can do, right? Using Outlook and Gmail are the two most common platforms for processing email. You will have access to values that come from the recipients, whoever is copied, the message subject, the body of that email, and also the attachments. Everything that you see on those properties on an email, you can then easily take action against it. Those actions could be, again, replying, forwarding, just deleting, marking an email as read, and things like that. So the interesting thing about looking at email is that we will start looking at a message as a object with properties, right? Like the subject, the sender, the recipient, and whatnot. And then we can make those decisions around what we want to do. We can save those attachments that are coming along. Probably one of the most powerful things you can do. It really saves you time if you're in accounts payable. Keep using that example because it's just too good. Sometimes you receive dozens of invoices every day and you need to have them all organized by date, maybe by month, by quarter, depending on your needs. Just being able to make sure that you don't lose all that information because you receive too many emails is super important. And using automation to save all of those in the location you need, with the name you need, with any context is super important. So you can also make sure that your emails are organized automatically. And that second example here is you can move emails around, right? So if you're using Outlook, you'll probably have several folders that you use. Some folks migrate, move the emails every month, others do it every day, depending on the volume, or you might move emails based on their content. Maybe this is an invoice, this is I don't know, a resume and something like that. So you can kind of move those around your mailbox in different folders. So you can definitely use UiPath to move things around as well. So pretty common activities. Not so common ones now, but we'll definitely see good usage. You can make some decisions based on a group of emails. So when you see for each email activity, it's really saying, hey, for each email that might be in a folder or that might have an attachment, I want to do something. And that really allows you to iterate across several emails that respect a given criteria that you will find. And we will use an example of that that is really interesting. And then another option that you might also use is when you create an automation that involves sending email to someone, you might have the option to say, hey, let me use the body of the email as a Word document. And we'll see why that might be a good idea sometimes in our walkthrough here. So depending on the situation, you just reply as text, or if you need some more rich text and more formatting and whatnot, you can then also interact with Word to send that as a document in this example. As usual, you see the organization in StudioX now around resources and actions. right? We have 3 main resources on how we interact with Gmail and Outlook, and 15 actions regarding those resources. Let's dive on them a little bit. So you see the resources up top, and basically it's all around, should I use my desktop Outlook app? Should I use my Gmail? Or should I use a Outlook 365 account that runs on the cloud to do something around those emails? So basically those research is setting the context. You might be doing something with Outlook, so you start with that research, use that desktop, and so forth. And then we have several actions. Let's take a look on some of the most common actions around email automation here. Archive an email, that's pretty much it. Delete an email, deletes that email. For each allows you to interact through several emails. You can forward, mark emails as read and unread, move emails around, reply to an email, save an email, save the whole message, save email attachments, maybe send a calendar invite, or just send a new email that's not from a reply. So these are some of the most common actions that you do on a day-to-day basis with email, and they are already mapped out in UiPath StudioX to give you those activities to do some work around emails. Before I jump into the demo, let me just bring the chat here and see if we have any questions that I can answer. All right, see, they are being replied. That's all good. So let's take a look on an example here. In this demo, the example of the accounts receivable department that might receive hundreds of emails every day, and they might need to process those emails and figure out which ones are invoices, and you might get them downloaded into a given folder. And maybe if they have some keywords, I want to do something a little bit different. I need to make sure that if something is overdue, that I can move to a different folder for priority that I can take a look later on. So this is just a base example, and we will expand on it on this demo here. So let me bring Studio over, and I'm gonna create a new project with a bake task here. Let me call it session 4, email automation AP. And I'm gonna give it a nice description here. And I'm gonna create. Let's give it a second to bring up my Studio. Oh, it's thinking here. Hopefully starting to see that a lot of the email automation might be sounding like small things that you might get some quick wins out of it. But when you sum up all the kind of repetitive work that might happen around that email automation, it ends up saving a lot of time, especially when you're looking at departments that heavily rely on email, processing purchase orders, processing resumes on AGI is a fairly usual use case for email automation. They usually receive hundreds of emails a day. So being able to automate, even if it's a subset of those, is something that pays back really nicely and gives you a consistent approach to your customer as well. So that is really good. So I'm looking here at my Studio. The first thing I like to call out is just how easy it is to get a little bit more detail if you have a question in Studio. I mentioned that we have 3 resources for email, right? Use Outlook, use Gmail, and 365 environment for cloud. So let's say I don't know exactly, I'll I'll start my example with using Outlook. It is probably the most common one. And I look in here, and I'm not completely sure what this account means and whatnot. So one thing that I use a lot, and I will encourage you to do so, is if you right-click an activity, it also has this help. Let me click here. And when I click help, Studio automatically redirects you to the documentation in UiPath's website with the details of that activity and all the settings. And this example that I'll give you here, it has a lot being already documented on the tutorials as well, which is super nice, right? If you have questions around how I use a given activity or which activity should I use, right click, help will get you where you want. So in my example, I'm gonna say, hey, using my default Outlook account, let me look through all the emails. So going back on my presentation here, I might receive hundreds of invoices. I want to process them by saving them locally. And if they have overdue, I wanna maybe move them around to a different folder. So that's exactly what I will do. So let me show my Outlook first so you understand a little bit of the environment, right? So here in my Outlook, I have my inbox, and you see I have a folder called business invoices, which is what I'll make my automation look at. So hey, look at the business invoices, save the attachments, and if something is overdue, let's move it to priority, just as an example. So I'm gonna move 2 examples here so that we can do this exercise. And right now, my business invoices has 2 invoices, and the priority one is empty. And usually I save my invoices on a local folder on my computer that I'll call payable. So that is my process, right? I want to get all the invoices saved on my computer. Maybe it's a network share that all my department uses, something around those lines. So that's the example, pretty common, that you need to save attachments no matter which department you are. And let's see how we can then do that. So I want to say, hey, I'm using my Outlook, and I want to take a look at all the emails that that I have. So for each one of the emails that I'll look into my Outlook, I want to do something around it. And you notice that I have a couple options here. And this is really important, right? You can say, hey, should I retrieve those attachments or not? Should I only process emails that are unread or not? Because if you run your automations while you're still working, maybe you already did some manually, right? So you can say, hey, just look for the unread ones. You don't have to look for everything. It might make it go a little bit faster. If you're only interested in emails that have attachments, you can always say, hey, look at only the emails that have attachments, and that will save you some time as well. So that is the idea. I need to tell my automation where are those emails coming from. And in my example, they're coming from Outlook. And I want to look at that folder that I mentioned, business invoices, right? So for each mail that is coming from my business invoices, get those attachments and let's do something with them. In that initial example, what we want to do is want to save those attachments to that local payable folder that I have, right? So I can basically say, let's get my attachments and just save it there. So if I want to take a look here, I have an activity for that. Beautiful. Save email attachments. And if I hover my mouse here, it basically says, hey, save the email message attached to a given folder on your computer. If that folder does not exist, it will be created. And if no folder is specified, then you just save that to the project folder. So really nice. So anything that I drop here will be related to this, each email context that I have. And I'm gonna get them here. And now you see another subset of options that you can use. And really nice. Let's take a look. Can I filter an attachment based on its name? Absolutely, you can. And examples for this, you might need to only save if it's PDF files, or you might, if you're looking at resumes, you probably won't need to look at Excel files, right? So you can kind of say, hey, just look for PDFs and Word documents and docx, kind of things like that. So there is a lot of control that you can do just by providing the default activities that we have there. As I mentioned, I wanted to just save them to that payable folder in my environment. So I can come here and let's look for that folder. On my C drive, this could be absolutely a folder if your department has a shared folder that others might have access. And right now, all I'm saying is using my Outlook, look at all my emails on the inbox and business invoices, and retrieve those attachments and then save them on my payable folder. One important tip that I follow all the time is test often. So we're gonna do some more, right? We say that if those invoices are overdue, let's move them to that other folder on my Outlook that is called priority. So I know that's something that is priority. But I don't have to develop the whole thing. I can just test. Let me take a look and see if, as of right now, I am at least reading all the emails that I have on that business invoices folder in my Outlook and saving them to the C payable folder. So what I'll do right now, I'll just run it to test. So payable folder is empty. I'm gonna run it. And hopefully this will work. And I will see something appearing here on my payable folder soon. There you go. Magically, 2 files appeared. I'm gonna delete them for now. Let me just see. In Outlook, my emails are still here, so they haven't been moved around. My priority folder is still empty. But I am in a point on my process where, nice, I'm already saving my attachments to that folder. For now, I'm going to delete them so that we can always test it again and test often. As you get more comfortable, you can definitely stop testing so often. I like to test as much as possible as well. So I'm not filtering anything. I could absolutely be filtering by file name, by date, by anything in the file name could be a filter, and you can combine filters as needed as well. So I could say get that email, and based on the attachment, just get me with here you go, start.pdf. So it would only get me on the PDF files or things like that. You definitely can filter things around. Now my next step is I need to make a condition on the example where I say, going back to my problem statement, if something has overdue on the subject, I want to move it to that priority folder, right? So these won't apply to all my emails. These will apply only to the emails that are overdue. So now is when I use a if condition. And you've probably seen that in some of the other sessions where you can say, hey, if a condition is met, do something. And this is exactly what I am going to build here, a condition around my emails that says, if my subject states that that invoice is overdue, let me then move it around so that I know that that is a priority to be paid. So my condition here becomes dependent on that email. So let's come here and let's say, is my current email not appearing? I'm still in for each. Yep. I'm gonna say, hey, on my current email, because that is the email that I am looking at. And I could say my email subject, right? In my case, I want to say that it might have, it might contain something. So not empty, not equal, contains. There you go. And I'm going to say contains some sort of text, and my text will be, I think was overdue in the example, right? Overdue part of the subject. And if that happens, I'm gonna then move it to the priority folder. So let's stop here and think. As I'm typing text here for this overdue, I might be faced with a problem. As I looked at the PowerPoint, it is saying overdue with a lowercase o, but I typed with I typed with a case o. So what I can do here is just say, hey, if it contains a piece of that word, so just overdue with a it shouldn't matter the casing on the O. I want that to trigger that condition, then to trigger. And if that happens, really what I want to do is I want to move that email to that different folder. So let's get the move email here and say what I'll have to do with that current email that the subject might have overdue. I want to move it on my Outlook, on my inbox, to my priority folder. So let me go back here to my requirements. My requirements are I want to download attachments from unread emails into a local folder named payable, and I want to move them to overdue, if they have overdue on the subject, into a folder named priority. I am kind of ignoring the piece of unread emails because the emails on my Outlook are I have already read them here, but we could definitely set that if it's a new email that you're receiving. Let's give it a try, and then we'll talk a little bit about a couple more ways to make this a little bit better. So let me just go back to my folder. My folder is empty. Let me take a look at my Outlook. The priority folder is also empty. So let's see if StudioX can help me achieve what I need in this example. So it finished. It completed its execution. So if everything is good, I have the payable files saved on my local drive. That was already working. Now the second piece was if that was overdue anywhere on the subject, it would be moved to my priority folder. So I can see now that on my business invoices, I only have a single file, which is the one that has overdue on the one that doesn't have overdue on the subject. And here I have the other one, but both were saved to the C drive. So if I had 100 emails, it would respect that. Now, when you're building something like this, you might be faced with a couple different options, right? So when I have overdue, you might have other words that you want to use to say maybe there is the word late payment or any other words that usually I use. So you can definitely use the conditional builder to say, hey, not only if they're overdue, but maybe I want to add also if the subject of this email contains, let's say, text, and I'll just say late, right? So you can have more ways of combining different things that might be important on that email to make those decisions. And the same way I'm saying on the subject, maybe you're looking for overdue on the body of that email, and you can definitely come here and say, okay, on that current email, maybe on the body of the email, you have the word, oops, contains the word overdue. Sometimes a vendor might send that on the title. Sometimes they might send it on the body of the email. And you can combine all those different requirements with the condition builder. And those requirements don't have to be only on the subject. They can be a mix and match here, depending on what you want to achieve. So up to this point, this is working. Let's make this a little bit better. So I'll move this back to my business invoices so we can test it again. I'm gonna delete my payable again. And I wanted to say, hey, not only I want to move that email to a priority folder where I can do something about it, but I also want to reply to that vendor, that customer, just saying I'm on it, right? So I want to make sure that I can do something with that information. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, I want to send you an email after I move it, telling you something. And this is what we'll achieve here. So what I'll do is I'm going to reply to whoever sent me that message. Saying maybe thank you, and I can maybe say something like, we're on it, thanks for your message, something simple like that, that I can do when I'm sending out an email. So not only now I am standardizing my process with always replying in the same way to a customer, but I can also do that in a way that I give some feedback that folks know that I am aware that they send me a message telling me that I am overdue. You will notice something really important, that by default, this comes with this save as a draft option marked. That means that if I run automation right now, it will just save that as a draft. It won't send it. If I really want to send it, I need to uncheck this save as a draft, and Studio would then send it over. And that's really to prevent you from, while you're testing, sending information out that you don't know, that you don't want, because you're still developing and whatnot. So once you're ready to go, you tested, all the conditions met what you need, you can then use uncheck this save as a draft, and that message would be sent. So let's give it a try. I want to check here so that we can see. So hopefully we'll have exactly the same idea. The email is moved, and I will send some feedback to my customers, say, hey, thank you, I know it's overdue, and we're on it. We're taking a look, and we're gonna fix it. So I'll go back. My table is empty, and I can test it. Let's give it a try.
Hey, Carlos, one question is,
Sure.
You are saying that the contains keyword condition is or isn't case sensitive?
It is here on the subject. Yes, it is case sensitive. So that's why in this example, I kind of removed the O, because it is case sensitive by default. Yes. Does that answer the question?
Yes, the person was saying that if they didn't put the O, then it would basically bypass the lowercase or the uppercase because it doesn't check for that O.
Exactly,
So,
and that's what I did here.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly why I took that O away in that example. And that's why I mentioned that you can kind of combine more words and variations of the word as well. One use case that I see happen sometimes, especially in bigger companies, you might have a single department for accounts payable that receives invoices from different countries. And you might then be looking at the same word, but in different languages, things like that. You can definitely write conditions around combining different checks here and there to make it happen as one of the options. So let's see what we have here. So the email was saved. If I look back on my Outlook, I can see that I have only one in the invoices because the other one was moved, the one that was overdue. And if I look at the sent message for today, I have that thank you. We're on it. Thank you for a message. It was sent. So again, a simple example, but it kind of shows a lot of the most usual ways of handling email with different criteria, because email is sometimes free text, and that is where when you need to find that consistency. And let me go back here a little bit on when we define email automation, we're talking about predictable structure being one of the requirements. It is so hard to predict structure on things that are free text, right? Because even simple things, that some examples that I love is you might have a situation where folks just need to give you a yes or no on something that is free text on an email, and if someone says yes, you do this, if someone says no, you do that, right? Well, on real world, yes might come as the word yes, it might come as just a Y, it might come as okay, and no might come as no, and or I don't know, an X, something like that. So to be able to give structure to semi-structured data, you might need to add some condition checks to make sure that you achieve what you are looking for. You see that a lot in email automation. You see that a lot on Excel automation. Kind of same thing. You might have an Excel file and a column that is supposed to receive only yes or no, and sometimes you get a little bit of everything, and you kind of have to build some conditions either to protect that Excel sheet on accept yes or no, or on a drop down, or you create some conditions around to accomplish what you need on that example.
One more question, Carlos,
sure.
was if you can show what changes would it need to be made to do something like this, but for Gmail instead of Outlook.
Yes, I'll have another example in Gmail. I mean, the biggest difference here, and let me just make this, is that we'll say, hey, let's use Gmail on my workflow, and you select an account that the way Gmail works is a little bit different because it's not installed on your computer, so you have to authorize your account the first time you use it. So it will ask you to add that account, and behind the scenes, it's really telling that authorizing UiPath to act on your behalf into Gmail. So if I click OK here, it will basically go on my Gmail, and yeah, I have my Gmail pre-locked down to not allow these connections. And I do have a secret already created. Let me see. I have that. I have that on an article here. The way to authorize, and I'll put this example. And this is my behavior is unusual because I have my Gmail locked down for that. But you need to create, and StudioX will do that for you. It will create an app password on your behalf that will allow you to talk to Gmail. unless you have it locked down like myself, and then you need to do it manually and create things like that. So the biggest differences with Gmail are around the use, and really when you get to a little bit of the way Gmail handles folders, it calls something else. It calls labels instead of folders. So when you're selecting the for each email, instead of giving you the option like it gives an Outlook to look for a given folder, it will like give it the option to give for a given label instead of that. As usual, as I say, if I don't have all the details, you can right click and go to the help. It brings you right to the documentation on how to use Gmail. It'll kind of walk you through how you select that account, how to create that connection, and what are the properties and whatnot around Gmail. So the only change is really on which resource you are using. Instead of Outlook, you're gonna use Gmail and configure your account on Gmail here. And a little bit on the difference around the folders. So Gmail doesn't have the concept of folders. It calls it labels. The logic itself is fairly similar on what you're doing. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I replied to just one person. Let me just change here to everyone on the Gmail documentation that I mentioned. If you need to create if you have the same situation as me, so Gmail is locked out on that.
Hey, Carlos. Sorry.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, I actually don't have the activity of Gmail. Can you tell me in the managed packages, where can I find it? Because I already installed G Suite activities, but it doesn't show me like use Gmail as the source that you have. I'm using 2019 enterprise version.
Okay, so let's see. So what I'm showing you here is the packages that are installed in my project right now. Because I do feel like at least, and that is a little bit of the challenge with different versions. They might have different behaviors in terms of the projects. So in the version I'm using here, you can see that the UiPath mail activities, and you can try to see if you can find this one. It kind of brings the Google piece for Gmail. It brings Graph for Microsoft and 365 and a couple other things. So you have 1.7.2. Can you go to a later version? Because then if there's any dependencies that you also need on your UiPath 19, it should catch up with you here as well.
Yeah, the problem with that is that since he has Studio 2019, he's not going to be able to get to the latest mail version. And also, I think even StudioX in 2019 was on beta version.
Yes, are you on X or are you on? That's a good point.
I'm on StudioX.
Okay.
But it's given by my company, so I can't like I have to use whatever they have given me. They have not deployed the newest version yet, and I have to make work with whatever I have. So just wanted to check if there's a possibility to install Gmail one. Thank you, though.
Absolutely. No, one thing that I can think of, trying to think here. For a while, we could have two versions of InStudio installed. I don't think that's possible anymore. Because you could have community and enterprise and use community just for learning and whatnot. Because I had that problem in the past and working through UiPath since 17. And on enterprise version, usually update a little bit slower because it's way more complex to manage. And for a while, I know that you could install the MSI version, which is the version for the enterprise, and the EXP version, which is a version that runs on the user account only, and community is deployed like that. So I'm not sure if that's something you can try. I do feel like you'd have to reconfigure the robot account every time you switch from one to the other, because right now they're kind of integrated under the same platform. But yeah, other than that, I'm not sure how you go around that requirement. I'm sorry.
Try to go in the email version. Go to version 1.12.3. I think that version still allows you to work with your studio version, and you may have that activity there.
Yes, 1.12.3 still has Gmail, which is good. It still has Microsoft
Yeah.
Graph, which is for Outlook. Yeah, so that version might work if you have it available, Rishi.
Yeah, and it doesn't restrict to, that doesn't ask you to have version of UiPath in 21 dot nothing. So
Or you're kind of stuck into 1.7.2. Yeah, and if there's nothing to drop down, there is also the chance that your enterprise has a policy that restricts different versions of packages that they can whitelist on the automation cloud. So yeah, you might need to reach out to IT and see if they can either update your studio and allow at least use the community.
Okay, all good. Thank you so much. I won't take more time than this. Thanks
Absolutely.
a lot.
No, thank you. Thank you for those questions. And it's always good to have some of those broader discussions as well. So thank you for bringing that up. All right. Why don't we take a break into a Menti session to see where you guys are with this. So let me stop sharing. Hand it over to you, Diana, to bring us a
Sure. Let's do
Menti.
Minty. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys ready? You have to be fast, as you know. So before I do this though, I forgot to put in chat the Minty code for you all to sign in on. Oh, you guys are quick. Okay, I think I'm gonna exit and restart it because I'm not sure people had time to join. So hold on just a second, you guys. And you can still join because we're going to start it all over again. Because if you looked at that last question, only 7 people had joined by then. So let's try this again. I'm going to give you like 30 more seconds to continue to join. Okay, let's try this again. Which of the options below is an email action you might automate? Is it getting an email address on SpaceX Mars program workspace, reading an email, or forwarding an email? They had 2 questions right. Let's see who's in the win leaderboard. Okay, Rishi, are you ready for another question, Carlos, or?
Yes, let's do the
Okay.
second one.
Second one. Question 2. Which action allows you to repeat a set of activities once on each email message found in an Outlook folder? Is it move the email, for each email, reply to email, or use desktop Outlook app? Whoa. That was great. You guys really are nailing these. Okay, let's see who's in the lead now. Okay, Mark is in the lead. Okay, you want me to stop this for now then?
Yes, that's great. By
Okay.
1 point, Mark.
That's right.
That's amazing. Thanks, Diana. I appreciate it. So let me bring my screen back. And here you are. Now, the second practice is a little bit different, and that might help you with a little bit on our inquiry, actually, Rashid, just because what I'll be showing on this example, and I'll just be showing, won't be building that because it might be a little bit too long, but I'll be explaining each set of activities. Is email automation and any sort of automation. When we say Excel automation, Word automation, email automation, UI automation, usually in real world, that sometimes means it's a mix, right? You might be doing a piece of one, a piece of other, or if something can't be done with email automation natively, maybe you can do that through UI automation. This is an example, as this is the last session. I want to make sure that that is something that we realize there is almost nothing that can't be done with StudioX, with UiPath. There are some limitations for sure. You can usually get around them fairly easily by being creative. And in this example that I'll show, and I won't walk you through exactly on how to build it, but that's why on the opening slide you kind of have that reference on a session to if you want to see it step by step. Is something that I use concepts around this quite often. This example is, hey, let's say you're gonna go on vacation. We all want to go on vacation, and you want to set an out of office auto reply. And as we were looking at the activities for email automation, there was nothing for out of office, right? I haven't seen anything for out of office there. If I go back on my studio here, I don't see any activity that says specifically do something about out of office. Well, does that mean that email automation can't change my out of office? So it definitely can. You just click around, right? You just use the UI. So maybe if you need to do something with Gmail, but you can't see the Gmail activities, you can still go to Gmail and click around to achieve what you need. And really the idea here is just to make sure that you start to see that you might usually be doing a mix of things as you use UiPath to help you be successful in whatever you are doing. And I'll kind of walk you through the example, and then I'll give you a couple twists on things that you can do that you definitely will correlate to your day-to-day, which is why this example is a lot of fun on things that you'll be using. Because it's a little bit extensive, instead of building with you, I have it loaded here, and I'll kind of walk you through each one of these things, and then you can kind of run it to see it executing, and you can kind of see what that means. But if I have to simplify, what it will do is it will ask me, hey, when you go on vacation, when are you coming back? And with that information, I can then go in Outlook, and I have that example in Gmail as well. I can run it to kind of just click around on the UI to do that. And then you notice that some of the things that are done here, you can twist it to make it more interesting as you're doing. So let's see how this goes. On the very beginning, I ask 2 questions with a title of holiday starting date, and I ask the user to say, when does your vacation starts? And I save that as a start date. And then I ask, when does it end? And I save that as an end date. Now, when your vacation date ends, you're probably not working on that day, but you come back on the next day, right? So I need to add one to that date, so that the out of office is correct for when you're doing. So again, great example. Might not be super clear, but how you can manipulate the inputs as well to fit your need. If a date is given amount from 8 to 18, you want folks to know that you're back on the 19. And that is really what we're accomplishing here. Just modifying that date, say, hey, add 1 day to that as you go. And then I say, hey, using the Outlook app, let's click around. Let's click on file. Let's click on automatic replies, send automatic replies, select the only send between this time range, start time, end date, end time, and type my message so that I know what to do. Do the same thing for outside and inside organization and do it. So before I let the robot do, let's just take a look at what it looks like. It will click on the file. It will click in out of office or automatic replies. And basically, it will use those dates that I give to type things here inside and outside my organization and give me a nice message as it's doing that. So that fairly simple step-by-step on the interface that can be done with an automation, but also requesting some information from the user when it's running, right? In this case, when you start a vacation and when it ends, and modifying the end date so that it allows. So let's give it a try. Let's see how that looks. Basically say, hey, when is your holiday starting date? And is asking me to add the dates in a given format, which is obviously a problem depending on where you are located. So you can kind of adjust these as needed. So let's say I am going on vacation from today. So then it should ask me when I'm coming back. So let's say I'm coming back on Monday, on the 15th. And now we should hopefully set this correctly. He did mess up my return date for some reason. I typed something wrong or the math failed. But it did the steps that were done kind of through the interface. Can we send email like that? Yes, we can. Can we do anything similar like that? Let me just turn these off. I don't folks really think I'm on vacation. Did it disable? Yeah, okay. But let's go back here and think about this example a little bit better and think on a couple ways that you can use these along with email automation and other type of automation that might be interesting. Usually, when you are doing sort of automation that you don't have an activity for it, and you can do stuff through the interface, you could make this example a little bit more interesting on things like maybe I wanted to also go ahead and cancel my meetings, or I want to send a message to my team saying, hey team, not only I'm sending an out of office that I'll be out, but I'll also let my team know that, hey, I'll now send an email once I set my out of office, say, hey, next week I'm out. I'm on vacation. If you need anything, please go to this or that person, or prioritize this work on my project, or something like that. So you can kind of combine a little bit what you were doing to achieve what you need on that example. Another example that might be interesting as well is if you think about things that you do with an email that I think are great examples on how to use automation. I'm not sure if how is the market where you're working on, but I see a lot of folks changing jobs, and myself and my team onboarding new people as we grow, as folks move around and whatnot. So something that I like to do is to maybe send a message for someone that's starting And I like to do that, send a message when they start, send another message on the 2nd week, 4th week, 6th week, 8th week, with a template that I use that basically say, hey, the first message is a welcome. Then a week from there, you kind of say, hey, these are some useful resources. And that takes some time for them to get to know everyone. So maybe in the first month, say, okay, by that point, they already know a couple of things. So I can give some more context and help with the onboarding of new teammates. Well, in Outlook, you can send an email and you have an option to say delay delivery. And basically that says, hey, deliver this only next week or a month from now, something like that, right? Again, this is not something that I have natively on my send a message on Studio maybe. And I say that maybe because it gets updated so often that let's check it out. Which example is this? There's a send email. Let me go to the properties here. I don't see a property here that would say, hey, delay this. Is there one that I'm missing? No. So if that something doesn't exist, that is fine. I can still do it, kind of using that UI automation. To Rush's example, kind of similar, right? If there is something that you can do because you can't use the Gmail automations, you can kind of do the same thing around that. And I think I have that example here actually on Gmail to kind of set the out of office. Let me bring it up. Don't save anything over here. Just bring it up and kind of show the same idea just out of office, but using Gmail in that case. And let me just see. I have Gmail here. And it'll ask the same questions, modify the dates in the same way, and then basically it's gonna go, hey, look at my Gmail and click around to get me on a vacation out of office message. And again, kind of a similar idea, right? It doesn't matter. Gmail from that perspective here of UI automation is just a web page, right? So you basically just say, hey, this is just a web page and I want to navigate to that web page in Gmail to set on the options for out of office. I think they are kind of hidden in the side here. So don't think that just because you are being faced with a challenge that might not be evident with the activities that you are shown, that you can't do it. For more details on that, let me just bring it up here. We have this really nice walkthrough of that use case, and that comes that example is on UiPath Academy, and really a lot of the examples that I use through the summer school, they exist somehow into the academy. So you can always come here and start this training, and it kind of guides you through a step-by-step on Office and Google on how to do that in a video explaining step-by-step. So let me put that link on the chat, and I recommend that you take a look on that. I'll just open it from the first link here so I can copy. There you go. And you can take a look at that at your time. But those are some really good examples on. Sorry, back here. On how to get around when you need and when it makes sense on requirements that might not be available with the subset of activities that you might have here on StudioX. It's unusual. Usually StudioX comes with everything you need, but you might have those edge cases. Okay, maybe for this specific scenario, I don't have that. All right, not a problem. Just kind of go the UI way to get what you need. So a lot of what you've learned through those 4 sessions is around building some experience as you face problems what you do when you're stuck, right? What do you do if you can need to get around or something that you don't have as an activity as researchers as we go through these examples. All right, so I think we can go to the second Menti, and we'll have some time for Q&A and talk a little bit about the next steps once you're done with the Summer Academy. What's next?
Okay, so just give me a second.
Thank you, Diana.
I'm going to put this Menti code in the chat again, just in case you need to sign in. That'll give you guys a few minutes to get ready. I'm just going to do a refresh. So we have a close tie here. Okay, so here we go. Which activity allows me to save email attachments to my computer? Save email, move email, save email attachments, or archive email? Save email attachments. Good job. Okay, Rishi's back in the lead now. Okay, last question, you guys. Which of the options below are possible by bot and email automation? Archive email, delete email, move email, or all of these? All of these. Good job. Okay, I think our two leaders left or something, but so Ashwanth, you just need to put your email address in the chat window for me, and I'll send your prize to you. Thank you so much.
All right, good job, everyone. That is great. So let me bring my screen again. And I just want to make sure that we have some time for questions and answers. And I'm sorry about the dog barking in the background. He's seeing someone outside and going crazy. But let's see, anyone has any questions before we talk a bit about the next, what comes next on your learning with UiPath?
Hi, Carlos, Rishi here again.
Hey, Rishi.
So just wanted to check how to get certifications done and how the certifications are, like what are the levels and how they are useful in growing in different careers.
Excellent topic, and I can start, and Diana can kind of help me a little bit if I miss anything. But as Diana mentioned in the beginning, community.uipath.com is really where you want to go for kind of have the hub with all the information. And through here, you have academy and certification. Let me bring that up. And you notice that a couple different paths to become certified. And for different roles, right? You have an associate level, advanced level. So advanced RPA Developer, RPA Associate, and you can kind of take a look on all the all the details, I can paste that into the chat. And I think for your second question, there was a recent presentation by the colleagues from the Florida chapter that you can also find chapters on the community. There was an event just focused on how to prepare for the certification. It was a really good one. Usually they're recorded, so you can kind of take a look. But what I can say is that certification helps you, of course, make sure that you're learning the right way, that you're following best practices, that you are keeping yourself updated, because you have to renew that certification every year and whatnot. So I strongly recommend, if you're working with RPA, with UiPath, to get the certification. All the training is free. It is super nice, and you don't need anything else. UiPath Academy has everything you need to get certified. Documentation and the training online, that's all you need. Really, that is enough information there to get you prepared for the certification. So I totally suggest you go for it once you feel ready to take that step. And before I go to the next question, let me hand it over to Diana for any additional.
Yeah, so the question, I think, is for college students,
Yep.
what's the benefit of advanced certification? So we just did a RPA developer survey, and RPA is this growing career path, and I definitely think it is, to your advantage to get certified in RPA. It's an up and coming technology, which is pretty rare in the IT industry. And so more and more people are going to start using automation. The other proof point of that is that for the fourth year in a row, UiPath has won, the stronghold on automation for the Gartner reports, as well as other reports like Forrester, IDC. So it's really, again, it's one of those careers and one of those technologies that I think is really advancing quickly. So it really would behoove you to go after those certifications in this space.
Yes, I'm sharing here, the report was just recently released. It's called the State of the RPA Developer, and you can see a lot of good context around job satisfaction, the life as an RPA developer, really the key findings in terms of how much that improves your salary, just you're happy and whatnot, both from a RPA developer, pure developer, or also from a citizen developer that's working with StudioX, and you might be an accountant, you might be working with HR, but by bringing RPA to your job, that really brings you a lot of advantages. Around the students, you can kind of have a spotlight on students here that has a lot of detail around the impact that everyone is reporting back to UiPath on, hey, this is how it changed my life as a student. So I highly recommend you taking a look at this report to get more details.
I think the other nice thing about RPA is that it isn't just in one technology area, it's kind of across a horizon. So, when you look at somebody, if you're looking at doing automation in one part of the company, you will always see it expand to multiple parts of the company. So there's a lot of opportunity with RPA, I think.
Yep. And Laura, to your question here, do you have a certification for business analysts? Absolutely. The associate is really focused on problem solving skills and really how can I figure out if a process is fit for automation. That is one of the most important things for the success of usage of RPA, is finding out the good processes that can be automated. Maybe sometimes it even means reworking that process a little bit so it can be automated. And that's what the associate certification is kind of looking at. And you can see here that it's really around business users that are looking to get rid of the boring work, right? And make sure that they can focus on more meaningful work by leveraging RPA as the enabler for that. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. Do you many things on a business analyst cert? I'm not sure if you have any additional questions around that. Feel free to unmute and ask as well if you prefer. Or any other questions? Awesome. From anyone else? Let's see. How much does an exam cost?
I think it's around $250. But if you're going through, I guess, an academy, I think there's a discounted price if you're in university. So
Hey, this is Agata. I do have one more question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
For my enterprise, my company owns the instance of UiPath, and we have the developers. So if I was to access that, I would be the citizen developer. How does that work with like the attended and unattended robots? Is what the citizen developer utilizing just a simple automation while the developers are using the attended and unattended robots? I'm sorry if it was covered and I'm missing it.
No, that's a great question, Agatha. It really depends on company policy. There is not one answer. It really depends. So I'm going to share my experience with 3 companies that I manage RPA COEs, and each one was a little bit different than the other when it touches the citizen developers, right? Some companies really enable citizen developers to do a lot and to take care of a lot of the heavy lifting. So sometimes the COE, the Center of Excellence, is focused on creating reusable components and a lot around the governance and security of RPA, and really empower the citizen developers to do everything. And that could mean you might be developing for yourself, for your team, for your department, for the whole company. And that would mean maybe you can you can ask the COE to schedule that unattended automations for you. So let's say I'll keep the example of the emails, right? You want accounts payable and you want to do that, save the invoice and whatnot, but you want to happen at night. You want to get in the morning, that's all done for you. So you can develop that, send that to the COE, they'll review the code, they'll make sure it's secure, make sure that is good to go. They'll schedule on a time that they agree with you. And all you do is you come in the morning, you grab your coffee, and you're good to go. There are models of automation that we call human in the loop, where the bot does part of the work and then you do the other part and whatnot. So it really depends on company policy and what they want to do. Some companies are a little bit more, let's say, concerned with cybersecurity, financial companies and whatnot. They might be a little bit, banking environments might be a little more controlled and say, hey, the citizens can only automate for themselves. They cannot automate for their team. And they can only use attended automation because it runs on their computer. Policy from the platform, from the UiPath platform perspective, that the sky's the limit on what you can do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let me go to Rush. Do you think we can send a trigger process to send reminder emails using Gmail and Sheets combination? Absolutely. Also, we can deploy bots created on StudioX as an app. Yeah, so the way you deploy bots, maybe I can show a little bit. There is something called, here we go. This is kind of the where my processes would be available, and I don't have anything on this. I have many instances of UiPath. The one I use for training is blank, but I can show someone here. So let's see, you could have a list of processes that you created available here. And this is the marketplace, another great example of things that you can get out of the box, right? And you could come here, click and install it. You could come here and add a reminder, hey, run this automation every end of the month, every beginning of the month or whatever for a given process, and kind of have some, I don't have any processes published on this instance, but you can kind of schedule things like that to run on your own computer. And once that process is published, it kind of behaves like its own app, right? It's not code anymore on your studio. It just becomes it just becomes at that point its own app running on top of an attended automation platform that you can kind of handle like that. I'm passing my context. I should have done that in the beginning. I'm sorry. What's the passing grade for the exam of the summer session? I don't know, Diana.
Let me see that question. Hold on.
What's the passing grade for the?
Oh, there's
exam?
a quiz that we're going to be sending out next week. You guys have already been through the material, and then you have the recordings and everything. So you just need to take a quiz, and then we'll be sending out the summer school certificates right after that.
Yeah, I just got some of what's next year. I'll go back to the question, but just so you guys know, continue with the email automation StudioX on Academy. The links are there. Tomorrow you should be getting some of the emails and the quiz and diploma if you pass as well. Let me just go to the questions here.
I have a question. Can I?
Absolutely, please.
Sorry. So two things. To what extent is UiPath free? Because obviously, if everything's free, we can set up automations for everything that we use. Then how does UiPath make money? And I know companies like the one I work for, we do service, we do UiPath, RPA for other companies. So to what extent is it free for us to use?
I'm not especially in licensing, but the community edition is focused on learning. So definitely not for use, commercial use and whatnot, as far as I know. I'm not sure, Diana, if you have any.
Yeah, I think the
insight.
whole point is just like many companies, they have a community edition. You're going to have to, re-up every once in a while for that, and it is free. But it doesn't have all the features the enterprise edition does. So the things that are free is the community edition for you to play in the sandbox. And then our training is definitely free, which is a huge benefit. Most companies don't provide that, and we do. So those are free, but anybody who really wants to use this, in a high running organization is going to want the enterprise edition, obviously.
So if I want to automate
Um,
my emails and I want to automate logging into my banking, if I want to, you know what I mean? Like I can use all that for free for my own personal use.
Yeah, Diana, if you let me just add
Yeah.
a couple more things. Yeah, so you can use the community edition to run personal automations without cost. That is okay. You cannot run like business solutions for your company using UiPath Community Edition. That is against the terms and conditions, unless your company falls under the small category. That you can check that under the UiPath agreement. I think it's if the company has less than 250 persons, gets less than 5 million revenue per year, and the automations are internal, not for your clients' use. But if you want to do personal automations, like you were saying, for your emails and those kind of things, you can do that for free with the community edition. Otherwise, you'll need to get enterprise licenses. And I think there was another question. I don't know if you made it or not in the chat, but it was regarded to this also.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And sorry, real quick. No, you probably already mentioned this, but where can we find all these recordings?
I just put the one in the chat for tonight's recording. It won't be available for a day. It takes it that long for us to get the video, but you should be able to go tomorrow and get the presentation and the recording.
All right, this last one that says get recordings for tonight. Okay, I see it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick follow-up to the question about the enterprise and the community version. As I'm understanding, the community I can use for my personal, but if it's business, I should be using the enterprise. And it's then the license based, right? If it's business, so each citizen developer requires a license. Is that correct?
Yes, each UiPath Studio requires a license, and each robot where a process is running in production also requires a license.
Perfect, thank you.
I see a question here around running UiPath on MacBook. The version of Studio for MacBooks is fairly recent, and it's getting better on every version. There is a session of documentation for running Studio of on MacBooks that you can kind of refer to. But it's to be honest, it is a fairly new product.
Yeah, I think I have that
I would
in the
say,
chat. Yeah.
I would say that the best option to running UiPath Studio on Mac, it's a little tricky because it's not running actually on Mac, but it's using Parallels. If you have an M1 Mac, that is the setup that I have right now.
There is also another option called Studio Web that is on a preview, which runs on a browser. So might be something to keep an eye if you're having issues with your MacBook. question around privacy. Your instance, no matter where it is yours and yours only. And automation is really running on your computer. Although UiPath is clicking around, what RPA does is really to take whole control of your mouse and keyboard. But the email is coming out from your Outlook in this example, right? So no one has access to that. What the cloud might have is just logs that you've used a given activity for troubleshooting purposes, but the data runs on your computer. So you should be good from that perspective. Diana, I think the last question is for
It's
you.
an email, so it's not a timed quiz. You just need to respond hopefully within a week and send that back. And then we'll send out the certificates. It's not a diploma, it's a certificate. Yeah, and I'm also gonna put, you guys are asking really good questions tonight, but don't forget, you can ask questions anytime. So just make sure you sign up for this forum, and that can be a private forum where you can ask all kind of questions. As a matter of fact, that's where Carlos is right now. He's on the forum. You can look up stuff, you can ask questions, you can help with questions. It's just really great. So that is just a great place to just continue being part of our community, taking courses, and also promoting what you're doing, especially if you're taking new courses, just your thoughts about the course, because there's always other people out in the community who are new. And so even if you don't think you know everything, what you do know is helpful to those who are learning along with you. Yeah.
Thanks for doing the course.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, we're talking about swag now. So yes, we have very cool swag at UiPath.
I would say that the socks are things that have caught most interest like ever. Every time that I post an image with the socks, I'll get like, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 comments in one game. So yeah, anyone trying to get the socks, you can go to the link I just pasted there in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, so well, if you sign up for our events like you did, so right now you're logged on to our citizen developer portal. There's other events I showed you when we first started tonight. If you go to community.uipath.com, and I'll put that in the chat, then you'll see other events we run. And once you sign up for those events, then you'll be notified of other events that happen. So it's really important just to, like I said, stay attached to us. We are right now doing a series of developer events with all the MVPs from the Americas, and they're very cool. And then if you're interested in topics, we always like you to reach out to us and let us know what those topics are so that we can, curtail them to our audience, basically. So I'm going to put my email in the chat too, and you guys can grab it. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to hear about or events that you'd like us to put on, we're happy to do that. So it's been great having you guys here tonight. Really appreciate you attending these 4 sessions. I hope you learned a lot. Again, we're always available. And I just want to thank Carlos for presenting tonight and Nicolas for being here. These are 2 of our strong MVPs, so it's always great to see them in action. And you guys have access to them. So I'm going to stop the recording right there.